Hello, music fans. You're watching Death by Unicorn, and this is my segment called What's New 2024, where I talk about new albums that came out in metal, rock, and prog over the past week. And today I'm going to talk about 4 new albums that I listened to that all came out on May 3rd, 2024. And I'll talk about them in my order of preference. 2 of these I have in my excellent tier, which is my third highest ranking tier after masterpiece and near masterpiece. I don't have any of those this week. And there's 2 in my excellent tier and 2 in my very good tier. Let's start with the excellent ones. First one, my favorite one, is Daath and their album The Deceivers. This is the 5th album by this American band. It's progressive, melodic, technical death metal. It's got some groove metal influence, some symphonic and industrial influences in there. It's their first new album since their self-titled in 2010, so they took a really long break from making new music. I'd surprisingly never listened to a full album by them before, but I heard the single for this album ahead of the release called Hex Unending. It sounded so cool, so that got me to check out the full album. There's some nice symphonic elements on that song that follow the crushing, groovy death metal riffs. On other songs in this album, there's great guest guitar players on a lot of the tracks, like Mark Holcomb of Periphery, Dean Lamb of Archspire, Per Nilsson of Scar Symmetry, Jeff Loomis, and more. Jeff Loomis used to be in Nevermore, and I think then he played in Arch Enemy for a while, but I think now he's out of Arch Enemy. He has some great solo albums as well. Just amazing guitar players featured on this album, and when they get their guest guitar solos, they shred like mad. All the vocals on this album are harsh, the music is intense, but symphonic, cinematic, groovy, technical, and progressive all at the same time. I think if you're a fan of bands like Allegion, Flesh God Apocalypse, The Faceless, and Archspire, I think you'll like this because it reminds me a bit of those bands. I'm excited to dive into the past albums by Daath now that I've heard this. The band spells their name Daath, and they have circles above the A's, so I guess it's pronounced Daath rather than Daath or any other way of pronouncing it. My favorite track after a couple listens here was Purified by Vengeance, which features Mark Holcomb of Periphery and Mick Gordon. Second album I want to talk about is Wheels. The band is called Wheel, and the album is called Charismatic Leaders. It's the 3rd album by this Finnish band. It's progressive metal. And I'd never listened to an album by Wheel before this one either, but I heard the single and it sounded great. I think fans of Tool, Carnival, and Tesseract will like this because it sounds like Tool meets Gent. This one, unlike Daath, is all clean vocals, so not a growly, harsh band, all singing here. And they sound really good and catchy, almost to the point of catchiness of like Linkin Park style choruses. My favorite track on first listen was Disciple. Next up, we'll go to my very good tier albums. The first one I want to mention is Matt Page with Apocalypse Garden. I think it's the debut solo album by this American artist. It's alternative rock with progressive rock, post-rock, and indie rock influences. And he is the singer from Dream the Electric Sleep. And I heard his band's 2023 album. I enjoyed it, so I was interested to hear his solo work. This is a very good album. It reminds me a bit of Daniel Romano in how it's kind of a singer-songwriter style songs, but they combine a lot of different styles and genres of like alternative rock with prog, post-rock, and indie. It doesn't have as much of the folk or country influence that Daniel Romano has, but for some reason it kind of reminded me of him a little bit. So check that out if that sounds appealing to you. And lastly, I want to mention Benjamin Croft with his album We Are Here to Help. This was recommended to me in the comments of my what I'll be listening to in May video, so I checked this out. It's the third album by this artist from the UK. Benjamin Croft does progressive rock. It's got some metal, some jazz fusion influences in there as well. This is Benjamin Croft's a keyboard player. And upon Googling this album and seeing the amazing list of collaborators ranging from Simon Phillips, Marco Minnemann, Billy Sheehan, Stu Hamm, Jeff Scott Soto, Greg Howe, Mike Stern, Frank Gambale, I became interested. Some of those are some big names that I enjoy. This is very jazz-inspired music. It's very keyboard-driven prog rock with a bigger emphasis on the instrumental side of the music and the solos as opposed to the vocals. But many of the songs also have vocals. It kind of reminds me of the release from earlier in the year from the band Trifecta in terms of the style. I think it's very good and well done, but I probably won't return to it much. And that's it for my first impressions of these 4 albums that came out on May 3rd. What do you think of these albums, and is there anything else that came out recently that you recommend I check out? Let me know down in the comments, and stay tuned for next time. Peace out.